Maybe you should just intro this one, Dave, because I'm no good at it. I said the damn
No, this is you.
Same thing every time. Yeah. Well, you just missed Dave mocking me. I didn't hit record fast enough. So there you go, guys. Hey, welcome to the North Idaho Experience. We have a special guest today.
There it is.
Apparently, I say that every time. It's not that you're not special. We've got Matthew Kubick. Did I say that right? Kubick?
You got it.
Okay, like Rubik's Cubic.
Like Rubik's Cube. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I actually solved a Rubik's Cube for the first time recently. Have you seen the one that only has one side to it? Yeah, I've solved it every time. I like nailed it.
What?
It's literally like a dice.
This is dumb.
It's dumb. That's dumb. That was a dumb way to start. My bad. So Matthew reached out to us recently because we did the podcast called, what the heck was it called? The Prepping for the Apocalypse with Alyssa from the Prep downtown. He sent me an email. He's like, hey, dude, like I'm in this world too. And I was like, well, these are fun conversations for us, for sure. And you've got a different spin on it. Matthew has a podcast, a YouTube channel called Sovereign Sustainability. He's based closer to Sandpoint, which is a little bit north of here. And you've kind of got a different angle on it. So I was like, well, this is cool. Let's have a conversation. And boom, that's how these things happen. He's here a week later and we're rolling.
Yeah. Let's go.
Oh, and Dave's here too.
And I'm third wheel.
Moral support.
No, this is good. We actually just got done watching that new movie, The Civil War.
Oh,
2020. Have you guys seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I heard of it.
Okay, so I'll just, not spoiler alert, but it's not, I would rather watch the trailer. The trailer was more fun than the movie.
Yeah.
The movie followed these reporters and it was actually, even our kids watch it and we're like, man, this is really very, very explicit. I'll say that. But also I think it was really, there's a lot of unrealistic stuff in there that I think is meant to create fear and everything else. Like everybody expects these drastic wars and all this stuff. And I just don't, it's going to be in some places for sure. But, prepping is a big thing right now. So
100%. Is that the Obama film? Is that the one
that's a different one?
That's a different one. Okay.
Which, that one was weird too. And there was a lot of like hidden messaging in there too. And I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like,
propaganda.
What are we getting at?
There's always some subtle undertone on any of those things that's meant to provoke you one way or the other. And it's just, I don't think as much of it is as realistic as it would be. Right?
Sure.
An apocalyptic, no electricity, whatever else.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've started reading a book called Potter's Run and it's written by a guy that lives in Sagal, which is right here in North Idaho. And I started it last night and I was like, man, I got like 50 pages and I couldn't put it down. And I'm going to recommend. So he's coming on the podcast in a couple next week, actually. So he'll be on the podcast. I think it's going to be a cool conversation. Just the premise of his book is basically the U.S. Starts up the draft again and they try to draft his kids. And he's like, no, my kids aren't going to go fight a rich man's war. And then it goes from there. But it was like, this all ties together.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. You brought us coffee today. Thank you, by the way. I'm going to give a shout out to Defiant Coffee. He's local.
Heck yeah. Post Falls. This is certified organic ingredients in this coffee. It's, this one's actually a Sumatra. So this is their dark roast right here. They've got two, you'll see the dark roast and the light roast. Dark roast is a certified organic Sumatra. This one's a certified organic Chiapas, Mexico coffee. And it's got different medicinal mushrooms in there. So, chaga, reishi, cordyceps. So if you guys don't know about medicinal mushrooms, it's all the hype right now in the CPG space. CPG is consumer packaged goods. So what you see in your grocery stores. And this is the best of the best right here. So,
dude,
yeah, cheers, you guys. Cheers.
That's awesome. I don't even drink coffee, but I'll try it.
Heck yeah.
This will be fun to watch.
No, whoa.
It's okay.
It's explosive. It's good stuff. It gets you going.
Dave's nervous because there's mushrooms in this, but it's not the kind of mushrooms you need to be worried about.
Okay, coming from a guy that did I know, we're gonna lose a ton of our viewers right now. I didn't have my first drink till I was 28 years old.
Oh,
right?
late bloomer. Late bloomer.
Yeah, exactly. That's why my liver is so solid right now. I'm able to consume so much more.
Right. That's why you're in such good shape right here.
Yeah, that's the theory.
I was gonna say one more thing too. Since we're gonna be talking about some prepping stuff. So these medicinal mushrooms, you can actually harvest them wild. So that'll be something we'll have to talk about for sure.
Up here?
So these ones, some of them are a little harder to come by. So chaga's one in here, super good for immunity. Typically, it's going to be further north. You find them on birch trees. amazing mushroom, super good, high in antioxidants, things like that. Reishi, can you find it up here? Possibly. I find one similar called red banded polypore. It's typical. I'll find it on birch. I'll find it on Doug fir, stuff like that. Polypores grow typically on trees, not on ground. And so you're not going to have a lot of like poisonous lookalikes. There's almost no that I'm aware of. Obviously do your research and check with your physician, all that good stuff. Typically polypores not poisonous. They grow on trees. So that's what's in here. And there's other ones like turkey tail, shiitake, maitake, agarikon, a lot of different medicinal mushrooms you can find out in the woods.
I can't even repeat half the things you just said.
I just realized that you are a wealth of information, my man.
Well, this is, if we're going to talk about prepping, right? This is the shit that people don't know anymore. Like people see a mushroom and they're like, oh, that's bad. That's the predicate, right? Oh, mushrooms are bad for you. And if you
grew up like that.
I'm looking at this right now. I'm like, do I take this? Because do I have to say that like I smoke mushrooms? Is this like, I come from a law enforcement world where it's like, oh, like,
I don't think people smoke mushrooms. You're such a.
I don't know what people do with mushrooms. They eat them. Super Troopers, they ate them.
It's like having a Mormon kid on the
Super Troopers, they ate them. I remember that explicitly. But
funny story. Sidebar, cop story. I had a case, a bunch of stolen cars on a property. Served a search warrant. Arrested this dude. Let him out, right? Because he's an old guy. While I was writing the report, he ended up eating, and he's a mountain man. Like dude was telling me about eating mountain lion all the time, whatever. He ended up eating some bad mushrooms and it killed him. Oh, yeah. Which honestly, if you're a cop, it's the best way to finish out a very complicated report. It's one paragraph. So I thought that was very odd, but that ties into my deep fear that my parents instilled in me at a young age of like, don't eat
mushrooms
anything.
Will kill you.
Yes.
But that's not, back in the day, that's how people found out, right? Somebody would eat one and be like, oh, this one makes me stronger. And oh, this one makes me sleepy. And this one makes you see God. And that's how they figured those things out. This one killed Timmy. Like that's how they did it before.
The only one I'm comfortable identifying up here would be a morel.
Morels. Yeah.
And they're freaking good.
Yeah. Morels are awesome.
So typically mushrooms, like, I don't mess around with floor mushrooms too much. Like morel is the only one that I'll pick off the ground. If you're going to get mushrooms to eat and for survival, I wouldn't recommend, unless you're an expert, going after anything with gills. Typically mushrooms with gills, most of them are going to be poisonous. Now, are you going to die if you eat some poisonous mushrooms? Probably not, unless you eat a lot of them. You'll probably just get bad diarrhea and start throwing up, and you might see God. Typically, like if I'm picking mushrooms out in the wild, I'm not going to pick the ones off the ground unless they're morels. So yeah, you got to be super careful.
So generally, growing on a tree would be safer. Generally?
Yes, generally. So now you need to know a little bit about polypores and what they look like and things like that. You do get some ground mushrooms growing on trees. So like you'll see if a tree is like lopped off, sometimes they'll grow up and they're the same. They're gilled mushrooms. So if it's a gilled mushroom, be super careful. Don't mess with it. Do your research. I'm not a mushroom expert, but I do pick a lot of mushrooms wild, including like turkey tail and some of the ones that I mentioned earlier.
So just for the record, we are not spreading medical misinformation with this podcast.
Okay, don't get Seth started. If you notice that we don't talk about certain things because we got our hand slapped from YouTube today.
So we have to be a little careful about certain diseases, things like that. Apparently, we don't know what we're talking
certain
about.
Ones.
Yes, this show is for entertainment purposes only. Anyway, so all right, how do you know about all this? Does this tie into the prepping homesteading world that you're in?
100%. Okay. So first of all, my main business is natural brokerage. We believe sustainable brands can change the world. So we help brands like Defiant Coffee that have certified organic ingredients or just superior ingredients get into stores nationwide. So Sprouts, Whole Foods, Albertsons, you name it. We help them get into stores, and then we have sampling people that do events in about 20 states. So that was what I got into earlier on my career when I was early 20s. And so I was learning about sustainability and all that kind of stuff. And then I started learning a lot more about just things that are not good that the government does and things like that for sustainability, the green movement, that kind of stuff. Typically people who are in my space, they're going to think that like the green movement is this great thing and it's so good for the environment. And I came from a different angle where I was learning that the government was doing all these very questionable things to promote being greener. And so I wanted to dive into that further. And then, of course, as I was learning about that kind of stuff, hit. And so when
scrub the word, the word, damn it.
You can bleep it. You can
We
bleep
gotta
it.
bleep
but,
it.
yeah. I'll come up with a different word. C word hit. And what happened is it actually tanked my business because most of our business, we were doing sampling events and stuff like that.
Right.
And so we weren't essential. So that put me in a space where I was like, shoot, I need to figure out two things. I need to figure out how to provide for my family. And then the second thing was like, I was the main breadwinner for my family. So I had to figure out like my mind, I was stressed out because my economic situation just changed dramatically overnight. And so I was like, I need to figure out something for my mental health too. So I started going out in the woods and getting more in tune with nature, hunting, fishing, trapping, foraging, gardening, animal husbandry, that kind of stuff, just getting more in tune with that kind of stuff and doing a lot of research. And so I started learning about one of the things is foraging, and mushrooms are a part of foraging, which as I said, I don't do a lot with mushrooms, but some medicinal mushrooms I do pick and make teas out of. So yeah, the C word, that's what drove me into really getting deep into wild foraging, and my business is why I started learning more about like food and our growing and all that kind of stuff. So
we were talking about this in the previous podcast that got censored, and that time in history changed a lot of people's trajectories in interesting ways, right? Like you may have not wanted to comply with certain requirements and then pushed you out of whatever field you're in, or maybe it pushed you into learning about different things because like, hey, times are changing. Now I need to worry about feeding my family, other stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah. So, okay. You've got a homestead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you like? Lay it out for me. What's it look like? What do you got?
Yeah. So our homestead is, we've got animals, we've got gardens, and then we've got land that we manage. So we've got a decent amount of acreage up in Sandpoint, and I'm tucked away behind a mountain called Johnny Long Mountain. That's my mountain right there. I go behind it. I hunt back there all the time. But our actual homestead itself, we've got alpacas, we got sheep, we got llamas, we've got cattle, we got Highlanders, we got
the Highlanders.
chickens, ducks.
We're going to talk.
We've had a little bit of everything. We've got dogs, cats, we've even got bunnies running around. I had a massive rabbit hutch and a predator broke into it, and the rabbits got out. They killed all the rest of the rabbits, but we had a male and a female survive. And so now we just have these two rabbits that have been running around our property and are domesticated basically now. But yeah, the main things we run though are the alpacas and the llamas. That's kind of our main thing.
I'm feeling that Dave and I need to come up and make a video at your property sometime.
Let's
I
go.
think it'd be awesome.
I think that would be awesome, dude. I love alpacas. That's something we looked at.
Mm.
Do you have the mini Highland cows or like the full size?
They're full size, so they're big old cows. Yeah, we so when we first brought them up, there's a Highlander ranch in Ponderay area, and so we bought a breeding pair from them. And I remember when we brought them out, we had to rope them and get them into their spot, and they were not friendly. And we've got an apartment and a house, and so we had to bring them between the apartment and the house. And we brought the male over. He was mainly like laying down and kind of pulling a little bit on the rope. And it was me and my father-in-law, who's kind of older. So it was me, and then we brought the female out, and that was sketchy. So we roped her, and she was bucking and kicking, and she came this close to crashing into our apartment. And drywall, she'll go right through it. 2,000 pounds, easy, no problem. So now we hand feed them and stuff now. So they're friendly, but they're definitely full size. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of cow. I want to get some minis, just for aesthetics. Like, do you have them for meat?
Yeah. So our farm homestead is a little different. So we don't butcher at our farm. We're mainly just trying to grow the flock.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we don't typically butcher, but essentially if something happens, that's why we have the cattle. Exactly.
Right. That's kind of my thought on it too. We've got 5 acres near here, and we've got goats right now and chickens, and I'm slowly building up. My wife is somewhat reserved about it, but just the animals show up, and then she loves them, and it's fine.
All right.
It seems like Highland cows too. I read about these, and they're Scottish.
Scottish.
So, yes.
William
I read
Wallace.
the whole thing to my wife, and it was in a Scottish accent. We went to go see them. So the cows, it seems like Highland cows are really desirable because of pop culture. Like they're almost like pets, right?
Literally
They're
every
pretty.
house that you go show up here, they have that iconic picture of the Highland cow,
right,
the
with the
horns, and
hair
and the hair,
over the
shaggy
face.
hair. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And, we're selling a house right now that has 3 Highland cows that come with it.
Nice.
And, we asked them like, oh, are these, were you using these for meat? And they're like, no, these are like pets.
They are super
There's something
friendly.
about that, but they're super hardy is what I understand for the winter and stuff like that, right?
Very hardy. So, and I actually heard, if you guys listen to Mike Glover, and his podcast and all that kind of stuff, he was talking about how like in North America, typically cattle don't have any shelter. It's just not common in America. And he got in trouble because somebody was saying that his cattle didn't have shelter. All cows are pretty darn hardy, but Highlanders are particularly hardy for sure.
Yeah, especially for the winter time up here, huh?
Yeah.
So it's a question I asked last time on one of our prepping podcasts. So since we're talking about prepping, this is a big thing for me because I think people are misled with prepping, right? They go to Black Sheep and they buy a bunch of dried food and they bury it in the forest somewhere and they think that's how they're going to survive, right? Or they're like, I'm ordering a Connex and it's going on. I'm like, I wonder what the dating scene is like there. Anyways, what is the difference to you? I see a lot of people say they're preppers, but really they're hoarders. What do you see a difference between those? And what's like your main thing? If you're going to prep, what is it that you should be considering?
100%. So my channel is a great place where I have some kind of criteria laid out. And I believe this is what essentially God was teaching me when C word hit, that time frame hit, and so when that happened to me, I realized that I believe God has been training me since I was a child to be a sustainable, sovereign individual here in America, not having to rely on the system. And so we can talk about those words, sovereign, sustainable, in a second. But essentially, I'm trying to be a unit that does not have to rely on the system. That's what I believe God has been training me up for until this point. So I think really, if something were to happen, post-apocalyptic or like partially apocalyptic, there's some chaos that goes down, supply chain shuts down, EMP hits, whatever it is, something happens, military on our soil, something like that. I think the most important thing is that you need to be a unit that can operate on its own off of God's green earth without having to rely on the system. I think that's really what we need to be focusing on. And all of us have different skills, benefits, things like that we can contribute in that regard. But the simple things are we need to be able to provide food and water for ourselves. We need to be able to provide shelter for ourselves. We need to be able to protect ourselves. And then we need a tribe or a greater community that we can cooperate with. Those are the main four things, in my opinion. And there are little things that trail out of those. So like for the food, for example, hunting, great, fishing, great, growing, great, animal husbandry, all those kinds of things. There's lots of things that come out of that, right? For the community one, knowing how to barter, important. Knowing what you contribute, what your particular gift is super important because all of us do different things. Some of us are going to be better militant people, good martial artists that can protect people, right? So that's going to be
pointed at me when he said that, just for the record.
Yeah, it's the tattoos. I was like, I had to.
Dave doesn't
all of us should know martial arts, by the way, though. All of us should know how to fight. All of us should know how to wield a weapon, and not just go to a target and look at the target and shoot. You got to do drills. You got to run with your gun. You got to pull it out. You got to draw it. You got to practice with your holster, whatever you carry. So, so just you got to, I think those are the four categories that are most important to look at and then figure out like, how can you be better in all of those? And then how can you leverage your own unique personality there?
So I think you brought up one that's kind of, that's forgotten about. You brought up the word community. A lot of people that prep have a tendency to believe, oh, this is what me and my family are going to do. This is our thing. Like that's what they see as their unit. And I don't subscribe to the fact that we're supposed to be individuals like that, right? It's not just me and my family versus everybody else. I think there has to be, and there's a risk in it, right? To trust other people. But I think that's one that you hit on that I think people have to be cognizant of is having 100%. A community. We were at the concert in the dirt the other day. And I was telling them how cool, like the people I'm looking around. I'm like, man, these are my people. Like this is such a cool group of people. And I think we got to keep, especially in North Idaho, people are coming here for a reason. And there's a lot of like-minded people. And I think if we lose track of the fact that a lot of us have the same values, the same ideas, that it can turn out to be bad, right? Like you need to be able to converse with people and be able to support. And like you said, what do you bring to the table? Yep. The guy that shadow banned us on our channel, I don't know how much he's going to bring to the table, just being honest. Yeah. And I think up here it's important. So the community thing I think is huge.
You're right, dude. And I've heard lots of people say this, oh, when things go bad, watch how fast your neighbor turns on you. I don't think it will be like that. Not up here. I don't think it will be like that up here. Maybe some places, sure. But I think people will naturally gravitate to those small tribes because we've always lived that way, right? And there's huge value in in spreading out the workload and each person having a specialty. You know, maybe you got a doctor friend or a dentist friend. I know a guy, by the way. And that's their thing and they can handle that, right? They've been trained for that.
Right.
And maybe you got the former military guys or former cops or even a firefighter, Dave. Like, what if you have to put a fire out?
Oh my goodness.
I wouldn't even know what to do. So we got you. But like having that is it. That's the key, having the community.
100%. Community is everything. So I think we all have like our own internal tribe first, you know, family typically, like if you got a spouse and kids, that's like your really, really internal tribe. And then you might have some like grandparents, cousins, that kind of stuff, family or really good family friends. That's kind of like your main tribe. Those are people, you know, for sure you can trust at least that they're not going to do the real extreme negative to you. And then you have your outer community. So for me, I'm in Sandpoint. That's going to be my outer community right there. You guys are, you know, we're all blessed to be here in North Idaho. There's a lot of really good freedom loving people out here, people who love God, who love the country, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think you need to find those people and communicate with them and then figure out what you all can contribute in a situation if things don't go the right way.
You're better together for sure.
Yeah. How much planning, like, do you think a person should do in that regard of like, hey, talking to your neighbors, you know, should you have some kind of ops plan, you know, for lack of a better word?
I think so. So my best friend lives in, well, he used to live in Los Angeles, right? Which is a terrible place right now, in my opinion. So, and he had a plan with all of his family of what would happen if communication goes down, where to meet, all this kind of stuff. And so that was in Los Angeles. Here, people are more open to that kind of stuff. There are a lot of people that are flocking here or have already been here are kind of already looking at this, like, there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world. We need to have a plan. So it's not an odd thing to bring that up to people here, especially in North Idaho. So how much should you have a plan? Should you have? I don't know. It depends on you and your family. You definitely should have a plan with you and your spouse if you're married and have kids. That's an absolute must. And then, of course, you got to think, what are those plans? So I brought up Mike Glover earlier. He's got his book. I think it's Prepared, or it's one of those. I think it's called Prepared. I think that's the name of his book. Great book. You should read it. Love it. And one of the things that I love about his book is it's not as much of a prepping book in that, like, he's prepping for the apocalypse. It's more just like, how are you prepared for life? Because we should be prepared for life all the time. And it shouldn't be like those are two different things. It should be like the things that you're doing to perpetuate your life are also preparing you for a post-apocalyptic event, right? They should go hand in hand. They shouldn't be separate. So, like, for example, I taught my kids, I've got a 5-year-old who's going to be 6. I've got a 3 and then basically a newborn. And I was not the newborn. I was teaching them how to use like a fire extinguisher. That's something that everybody should know how to do. Like, you should know how to use a fire extinguisher, period. You should know where it is and you should know how to use it, because I'm not always in the house. Right now I'm doing this podcast with you guys. My family's up there alone, right? So my oldest son, if he sees a fire and my wife is, I don't know, knocked out or something, he needs to go and get that fire extinguisher and put it out. And that's just a basic prepared thing that you should know, you know, and then there's other categories of that, like how to use a firearm, what to do if somebody knocks on the door that you don't know about, you know, just different things like that.
You know, and we didn't touch on this either, but, you know, once again, when you're talking about prepping, like the prep den is awesome. They have a lot of supplies and everything else. But something I talked to him about too, I said, you know what, something I lack in my preparedness is further information. You know, today, if something bad were to happen, I can jump on YouTube and I can go in there. If you have, there's so much available to us, but it's now too easy, right? We're dependent. If you're talking about being dependent, like if you're into prepping, you want to be prepared, order books. Get books. There are so many survival guides out there that are so full of information that you will not have if we ever go into a bad situation like that. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that if you just have a book, if you give me a book, I can learn what's going on, even if it's past the time that I should have learned it, right?
100%.
But if you don't have those skills and you have a bunch of supplies and you have no knowledge and no resources, nobody to teach you, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. How do I purify water? How do I preserve meat? Like, these are older skills that have gone. And you're right. If you had a book that has all of that information, at least you have that resource right there for sure.
And write it down too. Like, you could write your own book, you know? So if you're watching stuff on YouTube and you're learning about how to purify water, write down what you learned. Boom. It's going to ingrain in your memory better too. So
100%.
Yeah. And then teaching your kids, right? That's the next level of learning yourself, is teaching it to someone else. And then it really ingrains it.
Well, look, most prepping is built off of fear. Let's just be honest, right? Like when I went, you know, because we've been low on having certain supplies and stuff. And the other day I was like, oh, shoot, now let's go grab a few $100, you know, just some random things. And you get it out of that, like, well, what have happened? You know, it's always like this prepping is not necessarily seen as like a positive thing, right? It's like, we got to be ready, and it's got to have this dark undertone, when the truth is that you can make it fun. You can make prepping fun. Why is it when you get, you know, we just got one of these survival books. I'm like, there's a lot of cool shit in here that I haven't seen. Turn it into something fun where you go out with your kids and you say, hey, today, look, dude, this teaches you like 4 different ways to start a fire. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
Let's go fail at it. Let's go see what it is. Turn it into a fun thing. So it's not just about prepping. It's about, like you said, living. People lived here forever. I mean, let's be honest. How long has electricity been around?
A blink of
you know
the
what
eye,
I mean?
Right? Yeah.
Not much. How long has natural gas been around? All these things. People lived here when Coeur d'Alene was being built back in the 1800s, man. You barely had steam, right?
Yep. Mountain
So people lived off the land. It's not this foreign concept that we make it out to be, that like, oh, you wouldn't be able to survive.
And it's a good way to bond, like good way to bond with your kids. Like the fire building example, right? Like they'll remember that. That'll be a fun activity for them to do. Medical stuff has been a big component in my household. You know, I've been nerding out on tourniquets and like trauma care for a long time. And, you know, my kids know how to put a tourniquet on. I just thought last night, and it's because I was reading that book, and it brought some things to light. And I think conversations like this are important to maybe catch where your blind spots are. I was like, shoot, I've got a ton of tourniquets laying around, but I bet my kids don't even really, like, if I was like, I need you to, like, I cut myself with a chainsaw or whatever, I need you to get a tourniquet. I'm like, they might not know where.
Right.
So I was like, I need to have a medical bag, a small kit in the house, always in the same place, that I can just be like, it's in that spot. Go there and get it. You know what I mean? Because I know where they are. I've got truck all over the place, but not that.
Yep. Yeah, you should have it. Car, house, all your cars. Medical kits are super important for sure. Yeah. Tourniquets. You should have a lot of tourniquets. You know, they have those IFAKs and stuff like that. You should have trauma gear, like a little bit of everything. Like, we were messing around with tourniquets with my kids. I had my oldest son put one on just to know. And I think the cool thing about teaching your kids about this early on is they don't have to be afraid of it. It's just, this is life. This is how you live life. You know, you look at animals in nature, like they're going through chaos, like all the time. If you think about it, like they're either getting hunted or hunting. They're starving all the time. Like that's just life. You know, it's not, we don't have to be afraid of if something happens. It's more just like, you know, you have the opportunity to help other people out. If something goes down, you're going to be prepared, and, you know, they're going to love you for it, you know?
And I think it's a global responsibility too. You know, I have friends down in California. They're like, oh, I have my bug out plan. We're going to, you know, these mountains down in Southern California. I go, you think the other 8 million people around you are not going to do the same thing? How many deer do you think are there? Do you know how to process a deer? Like, you got an AR, which is going to be your hunting rifle. I guarantee it. Okay. And you're going to have everybody go down there and kill a bunch of deer in one day. There's not going to be anything left, and all the meat's going to rot because nobody even knows how to preserve it or anything else. So I think it's a global responsibility to say, like, you know, people hate hunting, right? But they love going to Costco and buying chicken. And it's like, look, dude, that comes from somewhere. If you don't know how to process that, if mom and dad the government isn't taking care of you and dropping that off at the store, it comes from somewhere. There's a way to do it. And I think it's a responsibility for people to learn those things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And like, back to the medical stuff, and you're right. It doesn't need to be this dark, scary thing, like a tourniquet, right? Well, you know, only military people use that or whatever. It's like, it's a very basic skill. And I've had people tell me, oh, you know, I don't need that. I'll just make one out of a shoelace or something. Like, sure. Yeah. That's a great skill to understand the principle of what's happening when you apply a tourniquet. But
on your way to the trauma center that doesn't exist.
But yeah, damn, it's a lot easier to buy, you know, a cat tourniquet, but get a real one. Don't buy the cheap one on Amazon, because it's not real. And teach the kids, because that works a lot better than shoelaces, right? And it's easy to have around. We just did a podcast with Chris Jones from Response Ready Medical, and they're a local company, and they sell IFAK kits. They sell all that stuff, and it's like good manufacturers. So, you know, it's not some cheap crap from China that's going to, the windlass is going to snap the first time you use it. So it's important to spend a little bit of money on getting the good stuff.
Sure. And
don't make the first time you use it the first time you use it, right? Like, get the kids out and practice with the dang thing, so they understand what it actually will look like.
Yep.
Practice at everything, for sure.
Having a prepared tribe is
Huge.
Good.
I need to see these conversations. I'm like in my own mind. I'm like, I got some blind spots I got to work on.
Yeah.
100%. One thing I want to add to, I was actually bringing my best friend. His name is Wolf. He gives me a lot of wisdom. He studies the Stoics and that kind of stuff. I read the Bible more, but hey, he gives me some wisdom. And one thing he was talking about with medical stuff, you really need to be good at it for sure. On that note, you don't want to get injured in a post-apocalyptic situation. Right. And so that ties into another really important element of prepping, in my opinion, which is being able to move and movement in general. And so like if something were to happen and you had to go and provide your food for your family and you are low on gasoline or don't have gasoline, you're not going to be using your vehicle much. You're going to be using your own body to go procure food, to go barter, to do everything that you need to do. And so being able to move is one of the hugest importance in prepping, in my opinion. It's also just good for health. You're more hardy. You can probably survive off less food. So being able to move is super important. I think people don't think about that. They want to stack up their ammo and their guns and all this kind of stuff. And they're freeze-dried food. And it's like, okay, well, what happens when somebody comes and tries to steal your food from you? Are you going to be able to zigzag out of gunfire and then put the person down, or are you going to be able to evade if you need to? Or what if you're out hunting and a bear rolls up on you? Like, have you guys ever been charged by a bear before?
Negative. No.
Okay. So I've been charged by a bear a couple times out hunting. You need to be able to move. Moose, same thing. A moose, like it has a line of path that it goes on. And if you're on that line of path, that's where it's going. So you need to get off that line of path. And if you get off of it, you're safe for the most part. So being able to move is super important for defending yourself, for health, for hunting, for just about everything. Everything involves your body. So if you can't move, you're in bad shape. And it ties with the medical thing, because if you break a bone in the apocalypse, you're screwed. Yeah. That's it.
Well, that's the stuff that people don't, we take very, very small steps. You think like, oh, okay, well, I have freeze-dried food. Well, how are you going to cook it? I have a tourniquet. Well, yeah, like you said, you put on a tourniquet on somebody post-apocalyptic, there's nobody coming to fix what's going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're losing that limb. Mm-hmm. You're saving somebody's life probably for them to get infected and die weeks later.
Valid point.
And so, those are important things to know, but we have to realize the other resource is the reality that if you do break a bone, you sprain an ankle, you're out of service for a week, right? Mm-hmm. Like you sprain an ankle, that's a big deal in a post-apocalyptic world, because you have to work every day to get food. Yep. So, that can't, and we have an unhealthy ass society. Like a bunch of people are unhealthy. And that's a huge thing. How many people are relying on medication? We're about to do a podcast on testosterone. I'm meeting with a guy today, and it's something I've been flirting with back and forth, whether or not I want to go on it. I mean, if you were to look at the two of us and look at our bicep veins and everything else, you could probably figure out who's on testosterone, right? But the truth is like, I've heard a ton of people tell me like, oh my God, it's changed my life. Mm-hmm. Like, my goodness, it's changed my marriage. It's changed my health. It's changed all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. What happens if that supply dries up? Right. This high-pitched small male over here is going to dominate.
I told you.
All of you, yeah.
I've got a 3-month supply on hand. I've got 3 months to establish dominance. After that, I will shrivel up.
Exactly. And my 320 testosterone is going to rule the roost, right?
So this is something that just came to mind before you even brought up like what's going to happen when the supply runs out. I don't know. This is more being posed as a question. Maybe somebody in the audience knows. But like if you've ever heard, there are some natural things, like for example, deer, elk antler velvet. Mm-hmm. I don't know if those actually raise testosterone, but I know it has some sort of effect like that.
Right.
So I bet you there's some natural things that might be able to solve that problem, so possibly.
You're right down my lane right now, because I've been fighting for 2 years, right? I got out of law enforcement and fire career. My testosterone's super low. I got low libido. I'm tired. I can't lose fat. I can't gain muscle that much, like, a lot of the symptoms. And I've been fighting it for a couple years, and I'm still on the verge of like, I've been doing a lot of those things. I've been doing a lot of like, what's the natural way? What are the B vitamins? What is the sleep regimen? What is the water? What is the hydration? What are these things that I can do naturally? Changing my diet. Don't drink beer. Right.
Those things will make a noticeable change.
And it has. My testosterone has gone up. I'm still not where I want to be, but that's my hesitation, right? Because once you're dependent on something, just like we are with everything, our business is dependent on this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, when the podcast goes away, if there's no YouTube, there's no, any way to tell people, how do you survive? So
please like and subscribe, by the way.
Yeah. Like and subscribe, please. But that's a huge thing. There's a lot of people that are on medications. And I think if you're on medications and you're into prepping, that's something you have to consider.
There's some scary ones, right? I mean, we talked about this in maybe the podcast with Alyssa, but like all the people that are on SSRIs, this is not medical misinformation. I'm just talking. But all of the different medications,
selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors,
thyroid whatever it is, right? And you're reliant on that, man. That could go away. So you need to at least have a stockpile.
Yeah. And a double-edged sword here, and maybe you can, give on this one, is that I think a lot of the reasons we're dependent on these medications, high blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications, all, lipids, all these different things. I think that an apocalyptic world where you have to forage and live off the land and eat mushrooms and eat organic meat, right? Do the certain things that we're supposed to do anyways. I'm willing to bet that you see a much healthier society, and even people that are able to thrive off those medications.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's TEDx Spokane. I've done 2 auditions with them, and the first one I was talking about more of what sovereign sustainability
what did you say it was called?
TEDx Spokane.
Oh, okay.
So I did 2 auditions there. I'm hoping to get on. We'll see. The first one I did it more about like those 4 categories I mentioned for sovereign sustainability. But the next one I actually was I was up late the night before my practice. Basically, they have like, I don't know, probably 1,000 people that apply, and then they take their top 30, and I always make it to the top 30. And then I, do my speech with them. My second one, I was sitting up late the night before, and I was just like, man, I was like kind of stressing out about the topic. I was like, do I really want to talk about this? And I kind of rehashed my idea to something along the lines of how modern day society does not benefit our health because we're too reliant on technology. And I think that if we can reconvene with the nature that God built for us, it will solve a lot of our health issues, especially mental health. So that was kind of like my theory and some of the stuff I was talking about. And it ties into like when my business crashed in 2020, I guess, right? That was when came March 2020. Yep. And so one of the things that I've noticed, getting out in nature more, grounding more, foraging my own food, all that kind of stuff, my mental health has improved dramatically, and it's helped me a lot. Like, so I think it would actually benefit people if SHTF.
I guess the question and the pushback you might get is like, what do people living in the cities do, right? You got 20 million people packed into freaking New York or whatever.
In the city, you better think about that.
How do they do that?
Yep. So that's a great question. And I actually got that question from some people in the audience when I gave that speech. And so first of all, everything is baby steps. So with everything, you can do steps to improve in any way. Health and wellness, like you can go start doing push-ups in your house, like cool. And even if you can't do a full push-up, do a half push-up. I don't care. Do 50 half push-ups, do whatever you can. There's lots of things that you can do. In New York, you can still ground. So one of the things you can do, and I learned this from Liver King. Some people don't like him, but Liver King, he's a funny guy. He'll throw his hands on a tree to ground. I'm like, cool. That's awesome. You can do that in a city because that tree is still in the ground. So you can ground with that tree. I'm a big fan of grounding. Some people don't believe in it. Hey, I do. Even if there's an ounce of truth to it, I think grounding is a great thing. You can still grow stuff. Like even if you're in a high rise in New York, you can grow stuff in your window. You can buy your own organic soil and grow stuff in your window. You can filter your water properly because water is a big one. There's a lot of toxins in city water, just saying. And you can still get out of the city. Go get out of the city for even an hour once a week or something. I bet you it'll change your life. So it's all about those baby steps. There's little things you can do. You don't have to be crazy and live in the woods and, not have internet. Just baby steps, little tiny things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge because we've lost contact with the world, the actual world, right? We're looking down, we see concrete, not dirt. And people will spend 4 hours trying to sit on the internet and complain about grounding as opposed to just going out and trying it for 30 seconds a day, right?
Right.
Like, because they don't see an immediate effect or they, it's not something they can recognize. But the big cities, the thing that I always feel worried for people that live in the big cities is they say,
yep.
Oh yeah, dude. Hey, I've had friends say it. If anything happens, dude, we're coming up to you. I'm like, what do you mean? How are you going to drive? You have 1 tank of gas. Okay. Your Tesla don't work anymore because there ain't electricity. So you're going to drive 1 tank of gas and then you're going to end up in the middle of Nevada where you don't know shit around you. You're unfamiliar with the area, the environment, the weather patterns, the resources, anything else. And then what's going to happen? You're going to end up dying out there.
Yep.
Because you aren't going to make it up here.
Yep.
And so that is a scary thing when you're in the city. I think a lot of people are putting all their trust and everything else in the government and to be taken care of because there are things you can do to be healthier. But as for prepping in the city, that's tough.
That's super tough.
I think we've probably both seen FEMA in action. And they can do some great stuff, but it can be a bit of a shit show. And, you know, I wouldn't want to rely on a huge city,
right,
solely relying on FEMA to come in and like provide food and water.
Well, look, if there's no incentive financially or for control, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. Whoever's paying, somebody's got to be making money or somebody's got to be gaining control. If not, they're not out there just out of the goodness of their hearts. I don't care if you like Trump or Kamala or whatever the heck. They're not looking to Seth and be like, how do I make your life better?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
One's an economist who I think would be great for the economy and everything else. The other one, well, I mean, you saw the Joe Rogan podcast today, I guess, to say that. But I think that's a tough position to be in.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the movement thing, because this is near and dear to my heart. I'm sure, Dave, you saw it. The 350-pound cop or firefighter, I don't care what you say, you are not able to do the job.
No.
You're not able to do it correctly and safely. You're more prone to injury. You are not going to be able to hop a fence, drag another unconscious person, any of that stuff, just because you're so unhealthy. So I think our society has pushed really hard to accept that as a healthy way of living, but it's not true.
Yeah.
And so when Matthew reached out to me, he was like, yeah, I kind of look at prepping from this viewpoint. And I was like, well, that's different. And that's important to talk about. So what's your fitness regimen look like? Because you do it a little different, right?
100%. So I train every day. First of all, at one point in my life, when I've been an athlete my whole life, I was told I believe it's a lie, that you can overtrain, which you can, but I was training basically every day at the time, and I felt the best I ever had. Then I fell into that lie a little bit. And then after it hit, I was like, screw this. I'm going to train every day because I like to train. Why would I not train every day? So I think it's important to train whatever you can do. Great. Everybody's body's different. Everybody has different functions and different gifts and things like that. I think you should leverage those gifts and also work on your weaknesses. I personally believe MMA, martial arts, I think that's number one, is the most important thing you can practice. I think every single person on the planet should do martial arts. It's your own duty to protect yourself. I love our first responders. It's amazing that, we have people that can come and save us in emergency, but you're your first responder in a situation. So you need to protect yourself and your family. And so I think every single person should have a martial arts experience. Do you have to be a UFC fighter? No, not at all. But you should be training so right now I'm doing MMA about twice a week, and then I roll jiu-jitsu about twice a week. So that's what I do there. I lift some weights. I do some parkour and gymnastics. I coach at Saga Gymnastics up in Ponderay. So I teach the boys level 2 and 1, even though the level 2 kids are really doing level 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're pretty talented. I think those disciplines are also great. Anything that requires you to move your body and program your brain to figure out new things is going to be the best thing you can do, because when you're in a situation that you're not prepared for, that's what you need to do, is program your brain to do something new. And when your adrenaline's running and you're doing something you're not familiar with, whether it's running from a bear, which it's happened, if you get in an altercation that you weren't planning on being in, whatever it is, or there's a fire and you need to jump out your window or something, you need your brain to kick into action and figure out what to do and solve that problem. And so that's why I love gymnastics. I love parkour. I love MMA. Those are some of the best things you can do. And then something I've been doing since, so when hit, my business crashed for about 6 months. And so one of the things I did to feed my family is I sold all my gym equipment. I've got a home gym with Olympic weights and rings and mats and all kinds of stuff. I sold everything, made a couple grand, and I was like, cool, I can do this to feed my family for a little bit. And so I still needed to lift weights, because I believe lifting weights is super important. You need to be strong. You need to be able to carry a body if you need to. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I started lifting trees and boulders and climbing trees and running through the woods and flipping over trees and stuff like that. So that's been a huge thing for me. And I think we're so used to going into a gym and lifting weights. And when you start lifting trees and boulders, if you do it for a week straight, if you change your weightlifting program from doing that to just lifting trees and boulders, you'll start to notice a couple things. The first one is that your ligaments and your tendons are way more sore than your muscles. And that's one of the first things I learned doing this, is wow, I'm probably not as strong as I think I am. Because I used to lift heavy weights. I could, I'm not super, super strong. I'm 160 pounds. I can back squat about 325. I can deadlift 425. I can do that kind of stuff. Cool. But as soon as I go to try to lift a tree doing that, totally different situation. It's not balanced. It's not the same. Your ligaments and tendons have to kick into action a lot more than you're used to. So I had to reprogram my body to be able to lift natural things out in nature. And so you get really strong, really fast. I think it helps you with your MMA and all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that too, one of the things I did during as well as I try to build structures with primitive equipment. And so when I say that, I'm talking like things that I upcycled or trees out of nature, vines out of nature to tie things up. And so I built a lot of lean-tos out of trees and other materials I found out in nature, or just things that were decaying in my yard. And so that's something that helped me with too, is I figured out, I can lift a giant cedar tree out of my woods just using my own body. So I started dropping posts and stuff like that, and built a lot of my alpaca roofs with trees out of nature. So it's useful.
I had this conversation with my son recently, because I almost do no isolated muscle exercises anymore. I used to do that a lot, but almost everything I do is from the functional side. And I noticed a few years ago, I was moving a couch with a buddy of mine, and he's jacked. Like, he is, he can deadlift 600 pounds, whatever, like jack dude. But he was really struggling with the couch. And I was fine. And I was like, like the big muscles that are great for doing isolated exercises are not great for doing functional things. So I have changed the way I work out. I don't lift heavy weights, but I do a lot of complex movements, a lot of kettlebell stuff. And I was trying to get my son's getting into bodybuilding, right? It's sexy to get like the big muscles. So the teenage boy is like drawn to that, but I'm like, and he thinks I do old man workouts because I work out with kettlebells, but I'm like, man, I'm trying to get his mind switched around on that. It's way more functional. Like if I can do a Turkish get up, with a 50-pound kettlebell over my head, that translates to real strength. And I translate that directly to my jiu-jitsu too. It carries over. And, a guy that just strictly bodybuilds, like he might not even be able to do that movement because it's such a full body thing.
Right. No, I think kettlebell is one of the best things for jiu-jitsu. If you're doing I call it a domestic weight now, because I got my natural weights out in nature. But yeah, I think kettlebells are like literally one of the best things, because a Turkish get up, how often are you in like somebody's trying to pass your guard and you're holding somebody's weight up, all the time, So super valuable. I think as much of that kind of like more unconventional lifting as you can do as possible is great. So yeah,
that will jack up your abs. Turkish get-ups. If you haven't done them before,
full body.
Your abs the next morning and your shoulder.
I don't back squat anymore. I'll do front squats with a heavy kettlebell, things like that.
Body farmers weight carries.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, on the mindset thing too, one thing, if you guys have a chance to look up people like Knees Over Toes Man, and going back to the movement thing, a lot of people, especially our age and older, are going to have some sort of aches and pains and some sort of lack of mobility as you get older. When you're younger, you don't have as much of it, but you're kind of developing those when you're young. And I think one of the things mindset wise people have trouble with, especially young men, is, they want to do the stuff that's good for the ego, back squat 600 pounds and, do all that kind of stuff that looks cool, or get the big biceps with, bicep curls. But those things don't really protect your back, your knees, those are the main two things, back and knees. Shoulders, sometimes people have those problems. And one of the things that I've had is had back issues over the years of doing martial arts, flipping people and lifting heavy weights. And, I cut out alcohol and some other things that help with that, but it never fully went away. It was kind of I would wake up and it'd be stiff. So I'd have to move around, get into a deep squat and move around a little bit. And I stumbled upon Knees Over Toes Man, and he had some stuff. Most of his stuff is for the knees, because I think he was an professional basketball player, if I'm not mistaken, had a couple knee surgeries. But then he also developed stuff for the low back. And so one of the things, I've only taken one exercise from his domain of stuff, and that's Nordics, which is essentially you've got your ankles tied to the floor, your knees are on the floor, and so from your knees to your head is the hinge, and you're going to the floor and back up. Takes a long time to develop. I haven't even fully developed it yet. I'm maybe halfway, and my back pain is completely gone. And so I think it's stuff like that. And it's not even just about the pain, which I think is an important thing to get to the younger kids. Is it's not about the pain. You look at some of the best basketball players or martial artists or, whoever it is, a lot of them are doing these really alternative movements. So one of the things that he studied was basketball players who performed at the highest level. And he found they were doing things like Jefferson curls, which is a curled back deadlift. So instead of having perfect form, your back is actually rounded when you're doing it. And then you're going down below your toes. And he found these guys could dunk more than anybody else. And so it's not only is it really good for alleviating pain, but it's also great for performance itself. So Yeah.
So next time I'm in the gym and I see some dude doing a deadlift and his back's curled, I won't mock him in my mind anymore. So maybe there's a reason.
Well, yeah, when you talk about functional prepping, I mean, if you're looking for something to do, obviously always being out in nature is huge, right? Being out in nature and just, I mean, even if it's on a well-known trail, you never know what animal you're gonna see, what behavior, what sign, what mushroom. You're gonna see a lot of this stuff. But I mean, if you really want to get a workout and you want to get into that stuff, I would say, and this is something that I've missed out on doing, is go get a sandbag and go hike to the top of Canfield Mountain, right? I mean, that's a realistic doomsday or prepper scenario where you're carrying weight and you got to go a long distance. You know, a lot of these people are like, oh, I have my hidden prepping den out in the mountains. We were talking about this recently and I was like, where would we go if we didn't like do your place or, you know, my in-laws or something else? Where would we go? And I started bringing something up and I thought about it. I go, dude, we got to be near water. Do you know how heavy water is?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you need it every day. Who the hell is going to walk 8 miles to Lake Pend Oreille to get water and bring it back to their family? It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. That's why if you look at the globe, you see where the concentration of people, there's water.
Yeah.
You know, in the areas that don't, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
But I think just throwing a sandbag on your back and just saying, we're going to go hike for 2 hours. We're going to go do this. I mean, that's a realistic day.
100%.
Yeah, that's a great. I have a sandbag at home too that I use. I have a weight vest. Sometimes I'll just walk with the weight vest on, and that kind of stuff just builds up like the hardness in the body. I think overall.
Oh, for sure.
Touching on martial arts, so my personal view, I got into martial arts in my late, I don't know, before I was 20, probably 16, 17, and it changed my life in so many different ways. It gave me confidence. It gave me so many skill sets. I think it's super important. A lot of people shy away from martial arts because they're, scared of getting injured or don't, I don't want to be violent or whatever, but it's not about that. It's about learning about yourself. It's about building confidence and control your body, control your emotions. And I think that's huge. I mean, I can think of so many times. I was a bouncer for a long time and I used those skills
100%.
And you build the muscle memory. So like when the situation happens, right, you're responding to some kind of stimulus, like someone throwing a punch at you, you just do what comes naturally. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, that worked out really well.
Well, that's about being comfortable. I always fear the guy that if I come over to you and I grab you and you go to pull away from me, I'm like, oh, I got this guy. The one that you grab onto him and they embrace you.
Yeah, let's go.
You're like, like they're comfortable in this situation. This is what you did at 6 a.m. Like, let's go.
Yeah. So I think, seeking out, and I think jiu-jitsu is probably the best martial art. I've done a bunch. It sounds like you have too, and you might agree with me on that. As far as less impact, you're not getting punched in the face, although that is important too, to understand that.
For sure.
If you were to pick just one, I would go the jiu-jitsu route. And, most gyms are super cool. Even if you're older, or if you're out of shape, don't give me the, I'll start when I get in shape. Yeah. I hear that a lot. It's like, no, just go. Yeah, it will get you in shape.
Exactly.
And you'll meet a great community of people and you'll learn a lot about yourself.
One day he'll invite me.
100%.
I invite him.
Hey, you guys should come up, train with us up at Saga Gymnastics. Bryce is the coach for the MMA school there. Yeah. Game changer, man. He's the best coach I've ever trained with. I've trained with a lot of people. And I do promote jiu-jitsu. I think if somebody were to tell me, hey, what martial art should I get into and wherever they are, and I did zero research, I would tell them just pick a jiu-jitsu school, go. That's not to say there aren't bad jiu-jitsu schools. There are. I've been to some. I've got some scars from some of them because some people just are too testosterone up and they just want to destroy people. That's not what it's about. Most of the gyms are not that way. It's all about getting better. But yeah, definitely martial arts 100%. And you should learn striking too, in my opinion. I think you should learn as much as you can. So we're training. I got a couple guys that are going to be fighting in Spokane pretty soon that train with us up there. And they're more jiu-jitsu guys. I've done jiu-jitsu for like 4 or 5 years. And then I've done striking all my whole life, boxing, kickboxing, all that kind of stuff. And they can't take me down, those guys. So now there are people that can. Bryce, the guy that's there, he can take me down because he's a beast. But you definitely need to know striking too, because you'll get popped on the way and trying to double leg somebody.
Oh yeah, you don't want the first time getting punched in the face to be the first fight you ever, right? You don't want that. Even in like police academy, we had this. They would put us together and we'd have to box. 2 cadets would box, and then we did a wrestling thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, sweet. I've been doing MMA for a while. Like, this is fine. But to see the kids or the young people that had never been in that experience, the emotion and the fear and the panic, I was like, oh boy, like you don't want I never, and I always tell my kids this, I never go out and pick a fight, right? I don't want anything to do with that, but trouble will come your way eventually. Even if
100%.
you live your life at the best way possible, it will happen at some point in your life.
Yeah.
So to be prepared for that and be able to respond and control your emotions, that's the hugest part.
Yep.
I mean, that you're going to be, I don't care who it is, you're going to win that outcome if you can control your emotions.
Agreed. Jocko had a good thing that he said on his podcast is that like he noticed that once he got to about like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, he noticed his body language changed. Like he used to like be like all, flexing on people. And he realized at some point, he's like, my body language changed. And so, not only are there benefits of the fitness and being able to protect yourself and your family, but you got to think like, okay, in business too, if my body language is more relaxed when I'm trying to do business or trying to do whatever I'm trying to do in life, I'm probably going to be more successful too. So there's also that benefit too.
Yeah. That confidence carries over hugely. And you notice that you see the guys that are truly dangerous. Mm-hmm. They're generally extremely friendly and pretty damn calm because they have that inner confidence of like, I don't care.
Well, it's usually because they've gotten their ass kicked quite a few times too. Mm-hmm. They have a respect for it, right?
I've been punched in the face. Obviously my nose is all jacked up, but I don't have that fear anymore, right? Yeah. I know it doesn't really hurt. I'm not going to feel it at the time. Like, let's go.
Kind of like it a little bit.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, after you hit enough times, you're like, dang, I want to get hit again. Let's go.
You hit a dude and he giggles, you're in for a fight. For sure.
One more thing I want to shout out to Tanner up at SBA Ponderay up there in Sandpoint. Mm-hmm. One of the things he taught me was the difference between a black belt and another belt. It's not about who wins the match. It's about who gives more to the other person. So I think that kind of touches on that is just like, if you roll with somebody who's got experience, they're going to give you more because they don't care. They don't need to win the match. They're going to give you more to learn on. So that's one of the things I learned from there is just, it's not about winning. It's about, what do you share with the other person? So you almost should be more gentle when you become a better martial artist.
That's pretty true. I get tapped all the time. I'm a brown belt and I get tapped all the time by even white belts sometimes. Just I'll put myself in more vulnerable positions. But my goal when I'm rolling with them is not to win. I don't care about that. Right. It is literally just like, hey, what can I give you? What can you learn from me? And I'll learn stuff from them still too. And that's the value. So if you're not going to a gym like that, you might want to find a different gym because that's the way it should be.
100%. One more shout out to there's a guy, Jamie Hyder, who I would train with, and he's a fighter too. He does. I know he's doing bare knuckle fighting in Florida and stuff like that. But he had a boxing gym right here in Post Falls. Actually, I don't know where he's training out of. He trains in Spokane, sometimes up in Sandpoint. And I remember I trained with him, and I've had extensive striking experience until I sparred with him. Yeah. And then he just decked me a few times where I was like, dang, dude, I suck. And so getting to train with him, showed me like, hey, I need to put myself in more vulnerable positions in striking in specific, even though I've spent more time in that. And the more I've put myself, I get hit more when I put myself in more vulnerable experiences. But what it's done is it's helped me become way more confident in my striking, way more confident that if I get hit, I'll know how to handle it. And so I appreciate that wisdom he passed down to that black belt to white belt thing. He gave me more than I gave him. So now I've got something that I can help and pass on to other people too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I love these components. I know we were talking about prepping and we slid into this world, but I think they do go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
And I think, to make yourself, my goal in life, like when I'm 90, I want to be I just want to have, wisdom and experience. And I think to get there, you have to go down and go down these routes that are uncomfortable at times, right? If you go to your first jiu-jitsu class or martial arts class, you're going to get some dude sweating on you and in your eyes and your mouth, and you're going to be in weird positions that you're like, this doesn't feel right. But you have to put yourself out there so that you can grow. And that is for all aspects of life.
I think that, that it really is the general concept of prepping. It's just being ready, your body, physically, what you can do, what you're capable, your knowledge, those types of things. Too many people, especially in our former careers in law enforcement, fire, military, that, I got a pension one day. Well, guess what? We'll see if it's there or not.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. You're relying on the system that you may or may not like, whatever else to provide for you at some point. I'm going to sit on my nice deck overlooking my 20 acres and drink my tea every morning. Well, rude awakening coming. If you're not prepped, if you're not ready, if you don't stay physically fit, if you don't take advantage of the knowledge and the people, hearing people like you, it's like, let's talk mushrooms. I'm interested. I want to learn those things. And I think if we lose that concept of wanting to build and wanting to learn and wanting to stay fit and healthy, yeah, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot if you're just relying on a pension or the things that you have and stuff like that. It's going to be tough.
Well, let's wrap it up.
Cool.
Matthew, friggin'
thank you, man.
You're a cool dude, man. I'm glad we met.
You guys are cool. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm serious. Dave and I are going to come up and make a video about homesteading.
Let's go, dude.
Hey,
Let me know.
We can do a workout while we're there. We can
Let's go.
I'm in.
I got the gym. We could even throw down a little jiu-jitsu game too.
We'll do it all. This is like, I'm excited about this. Cool. Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my man. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah,
thank you, Dave. Appreciate you guys.
Right.
So
catch you guys next time.
All right.